Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's all right. Move on to this. And this is all right. So, welcome aboard, everybody. And this is the Wednesday edition of the Shortwave Live Show, where we're testing out different backgrounds and different things that we're going to continue testing out. So, there's a waterfall projected on here. So, we're going to see how that works. It's a little weird, but anyways, we'll see what happens, and hope that it's going to be interesting to check different options for the live shows in the next few weeks. So, welcome everyone. This is the Wednesday edition of or Thursday in a lot of the world, because UTC 0 hours UTC is technically Thursday, but it's Wednesday in North America. And of course, we are here to entertain and talk about radio. And basically, we just have a lot of fun with this. My name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And we are here to have fun with radio, listen to signals. I'm going to talk about some changes and little things that I've made different, because I'm continuing to reorganize a lot of what I do. It is, of course, a great pleasure to be here and have fun with radio as usual for this night of live show. We have 3 live shows this week, by the way, for those that don't know. We have the live show today. We'll have the Shortwave live show at 20 hours UTC on Saturday. But we have one more, which is the first monthly amateur radio live show that will happen on the VHF UHF channel, and that is going to be Sunday at 20 hours UTC. It is the channel has been rebranded as Victor Echo 2 Zulu Zulu India's amateur radio page, so that will have more details coming up a little later in the show. Hope that you enjoy being here and that you enjoy listening. Got several radios turned on. Actually, I've got 4 radios that are plugged in and working right now, so I can quickly punch in a frequency on quite a few things, including the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery that's on the wall here. So I hope that you enjoyed today's show. We will, of course, have a lot of fun with radio as usual. This is a great place for people that are new to the hobby, because it's one of those really welcoming channels, and we have several ways that you can contact, and you can, of course, say hello. We have the email officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com, officialshortwaveradio@gmail.com. And you also can join in the chat room, which is if you have a Gmail account, easy to just say hi and ask questions. And people are super cool here. They're really, really great. And it's always fun to see how welcoming everybody is. And that's what the hobby should be like. We often talk about those old grumpy hams and old grumpy guys that are like, really, top of the world in radio, and they think they know better than everybody else, and they aren't necessarily the best in welcoming newbies to the hobby. And, counting also the fact that there are some hams that think that you're less of a radio listener if you're not a ham operator, which I always find kind of a little dumb. So here, none of that. Here is just fantastic people. If you do not join in the chat room, there's a Facebook group, or if you're in the chat room and you have that little moment where you're missing out on sharing with others, well, the Facebook group is great. Lots of fantastic people talking about radio and just, having fun and sharing what they're listening to, sharing videos and pictures of their shacks and radios, and they're find in thrift stores and all sorts of cool thing. things that are shared there. And I share, of course, my when I listen to the radio and do stuff, I also share over there. So that's the name of the Facebook group is the same as the channel here, official SWL channel, and we of course will be always helping out the the newbies and everybody. Great group once again. It's like here, heavily moderated, so any idiots that try to post things that are not radio related or not in what we like are quickly eliminated from the place. So I think this is why it's also a safe place to be. So by email, just want to say hello to one check-in. We have Richard Lemke from St. Albert. Says love the Carvel radar site working today. -1 Celsius in St. Albert, so it's pretty warm compared to here. Says more daylight hours will start affecting 2300 hours frequencies UTC. Indeed, here we have pretty much the sun is setting like about an hour, almost an hour later now. It starts to show. I mean, when it's 5 p.m. and it's still some blue sky out, it's like, oh, days are getting longer. So, and it goes fast. Actually, it's pretty amazing. So nice to have you here, Richard. You can check in via email if you want. Anybody that's not in the chat room, just say a quick hi and where you're located. Official shortwave radio at gmail.com. And of course, we have our fantastic chat room that we have a lot of people in. So welcome, everyone. Richard, nice to have you on board. Richard Califano says, just got done listening to Saturday's show, packed with so much information. Gives me something different to listen to in the car. Pretty cool. Bobby Burgess from Louisiana, WA5107 SWL. We have Canadian Prairie's Shortwave. Nice to have you here, my friend. RJDA Dakota. Nice to have you here from Winsville, Missouri. WA0113 SWL. 9 degrees warm outside. David, KJ4CMY. Nice to have you on board from Georgia. Rob, nice to have you here from Phoenix, Arizona. 65 Fahrenheit. Brad, nice to have you here. Good frosty afternoon. N5LUL, WA5192 SWL. Dwayne from East Tennessee. Nice to have you on board. John Beckham. Nice to have you here from Northeast Florida. Always cool to have everybody and fill in your names around. Christian Marcoux. Nice to have you on board. Says, I wonder if we can see the Freedom Convoy from space. I would not think so. There's a lot of things that people have the impression that like a little bit of space fake news. One of them, a lot of people thinking that you can see the Great Wall of China from space, which is untrue. A lot of people think it is, but it is not true. You cannot see it from space. So it has to be quite big to really be seen from space. And when we talk from space, we're not talking from spy satellites, because those can see more. But we're talking about like the International Space Station, for example. WF7I Ombru, nice to have you here from Istover, rural Virginia. Manbacks 2069 from Ohio. Joe Ronman from Chicago. Jeff Beaumont from Southeast Michigan. Jeff King from a cold Jacksonville, Florida. John Beckham loves the map on the wall. I like that map too. I purchased it a couple of weeks ago. Wanted to have something here. I have a map there, which I like a lot also, and is bigger than this map here. But it's been there for such a long time that I thought it'd be nice to have something new. And it's laminated, so it's like all plastic. So it's, you can easily clean it up if you want to just quickly, make it clean again, where the other one is paper. So you can't clean much, basically. So it's going to be interesting. Michael Anger, nice to have you on board. TBDXer, bonsoir, ça va bien, j'espère que ça va bien toi aussi. Cher ami, Nice to have you here. Greg, nice to have you on board. We have Timothy Gunter. Nice to have you here. X80Xer. Nice to have you here, Keegan. And Arkansas. We have 45 units. Nice to have you on board. And it's colder in Florida, about 65 Fahrenheit, and won't complain. Cruel projection of the SDR keeps you in low light stealth mode and easy on vision. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try to find a way to make it even more visible and easier for you guys to see. But at least we got something going on here. So there's a little more in the screen. What else do we have? So we have RJDA Dakota from Wentzville, Missouri. We have what else do we have? Let's go down here. Jeff King went to a new ham radio outlet store in Orlando, Florida yesterday. Ordered an Eton Traveler. Got it in the mail today from Atlanta. Excellent medium wave. Still playing with it. Great store. Cool. Have fun. It's always cool. And nothing like having a new store that has radios and all sorts of electronic gizmos that we can try. Cheers, everybody, from the, of course, vodka cranberry juice official drink. It's always cool to have these new stores around and have radio. Radio stores are getting very, very rare here in Canada. So it's like, when something new happens, that is cool. DJW883, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. Roger Gibbs, nice to have you here from the UK, where it's very late in the evening, if not early morning. Keegan has reception with his Ethon Grunning Edition Field BT and Ethon Grunning Edition satellite with SSB. Anthony Franz, nice to have you here, Anthony. Timothy Gunter, sun setting later is much better. It's not near as dark at 6 p.m. Yeah, where I like the long nights. Sorry, is what I like about the long nights is the morning. Since I work from home, I of course get up later than probably a lot of people, and that extra darkness in the morning is kind of nice. Because in the summertime, you wake up at 5 a.m. and the sun's already up. It's like, whoa, okay. But not everybody likes that. When you go to work, it's probably, when I had my 9 to 5 jobs, I would probably, I would love to have a little more of, especially the first job that I had in my life. That job was, I had to leave at 7 a.m. And so, and sometimes I had overtime in the morning before. So it means I had to leave at 6 a.m. And I mean, in the summertime, there's no problem because it's always sunny at that time. But in the winter, it's like, killer. It's cold and it's dark. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to work. Memories from good old days that are not here anymore. John Hummel Newell, VE5JHN. Nice to have you here. Anthony is in Port. Whoops, I just lost the little spot that was in here. So we have Anthony, that is, if I can find it again, in Port Richey, Florida. Canadian radio TV guy, nice to have you here from Sherwood Park, Alberta. Ian Butler, nice to have you here. Al, nice to have you on board from Westport, Massachusetts. We are waiting for the big snowstorm this weekend. It will be a good time to listen to the radio. Yeah, I haven't checked the update on the weather, but it seems that it's going to miss us pretty much. At most, we'll have maybe an inch or two, and that's it. But the eastern part of Canada apparently is going to be quite heavy snow. Rick, nice to have you here from Milwaukee. Michael Langer, KYK8583. Cody in the house. Nice to have you here. Jeff King I found a store awesome and great people, and we're so helpful. No stuffy, no attitude or anything. That's cool. Danny Cass, nice to have you here. Danny from Toronto. Canadian Radio TV guy, well, you'll be attending the RAC basic course again this year, as you mentioned on Saturday. It starts tomorrow at 040 UTC. At you must mean 0 UTC or something like that. Maybe I'm not sure for tomorrow, but I will probably be sending Hal because I was waiting for. So I got the email from Al Penny, of course, saying that hey, if you want to join, you can join in. But he wanted us, the ones that are not yet in the course, he wanted us to wait because the maximum that the Zoom account for the course can allow is 250 people. So he said, can you just wait? Because we're going to take the guys that really, haven't followed the course yet. And if there's some place, then we'll accept the others. So what I'll do is maybe tomorrow I could be there. I don't know yet. But I'll be there probably at some point. Anyways, I'll show up as Gilles Victor Echo 2 Zulu India. So if I'm there, so if it's not tomorrow, I probably will be in a few courses for sure. I will probably be choosing specific courses that I would like to just view again with some of the knowledge. I'm not going to attend. Probably not going to attend everyone. Every course. But we'll be checking that out for sure. So you're going to be there, and I know you're going to do great. Like I said, if you want to succeed, if you want to have your basic with honors license, listen. Make sure that you answer the questions at the end of each session. Do the 100 question exam online. A few times a week, at least a couple of times a week throughout the course. And I bet you that when the course is ended, you're going to be a ham and basic with honors, which is more than 80%. So you get the HF privileges. Daniel, nice to have you here from Manchester, New Hampshire, KC1MRZ. 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Here we're at minus 19 degrees, so it's like about -2 Fahrenheit here right now. What else do we have? MIT Radio, nice to have you here. KI5 MIT. Zen Pharaohs, nice to have you here following along today with the HF Plus and Homebrew Loop. FRG7 MLA 30 Plus. 19 Fahrenheit will be warming up with a bowl of stew very, very soon. Cool. I had ricotta and spinach, cannelloni with rosé sauce and a little salad with that. It was pretty good. Yeah, maybe I'm gonna check that out, move it away. But it's not that is interfering that much. Let's just see if I shut it down for another. Because what I could also do here is another thing, is I could use the lamp, and what I could do is lower the brightness. How about if I lower the brightness to say this level? Because honestly, its effect on the screen, yeah, okay, it affects the. So how about we put it like this? Here, we've got at 40% level. So this is maybe better, and we see a little more. But it's what's affecting the brightness here is mostly the lights in the front here, which are very bright, which is much more. What else do we have? The projector is at its maximum brightness. It's really, it's made to be used mostly in the dark and not have light around. So that's the thing. David, KJ4CMY is official drink tonight. Chocolate milk. Cool. John Hummel Newell says, "Oh, are you doing anything for Winter Field Day?" Not really. I'm not, set up, and you know what? I would have maybe liked to participate in the field day, the winter field day, if I had the time to do so. But because of many things, including an obligation to take care of someone that I barely can leave, I can leave here an hour or two, but not much more than that. So I don't know, and I'd have to set up maybe in the backyard or something to do with a makeshift antenna, and it's kind of complicated. And this is really cold, so it's like, yeah, well, we're not gonna do. But I will probably be. One thing that I would like to do is maybe do like field day in June when we have the summer field day, and we'll see about it. Dwayne misses the walk in stores radio. Yeah, just going in the store and looking at the radios and the gadgets and the stuff. That's basically did we do 90% of the time. What did we do when we went to Radio Shack, for example? We went in, we didn't buy anything. We just looked at the stuff. Just looked at the stuff. And that's it. Um, And Max needs to get one of those BNC couplers to be able to hook up all my receivers. The Win 1960. Nice to have you here from New York. Zenfaro says Link 11. Very clean tonight. Tech Guy. Nice to have you here. We have Skip. Nice to have you here. N2EI. Wintertime greetings from New Jersey. Greg, I want to know, is hard to pass the ham test? Not that hard. Honestly, it's easier than what most people think. One of the biggest problems, and I saw that with the course last year because there was a lot of people there. And in the course last year, there was quite a few that were, I think, overly intimidated by the content. I mean, it is content. There's some electronics to learn. There's a few little things to, cope with. The thing is, just you just have to listen and like I said, because I'm sure in the US you guys have also the online tests that you can do all the time. Just do that regularly. Try to get the most information you want, and it isn't that difficult. But a lot of people have a hard time with some parts of it. Especially, what I noticed is the tough part for most people is the electronics part. Knowing about the electronics and the different math going on with electronics. A lot of people in the chat room in the course were just saying, "Yeah, I've never been good in math." So I'm scared of those equations, and I'm scared of trying to find the values of stuff. And I get it. For me, that's not a problem because I went to college in applied sciences, and then I went to electronics. If a guy that went to when you go to applied sciences in college, I can tell you that math is not something very scary for a guy like me. But you get the drift of a lot of people, and what the comment that came back quite regularly was the fact that they weren't good in math in high school, and that scared them. Even though there is a math part and there is a electronics part, it's easy to just learn enough to understand the basics and get in there, but you got to concentrate. And And I think too many people are just too easily impressed by what they have to learn, and just relax, and do the best you can. And anyways, you can pass that test as many times as you want. So, if it doesn't work the first time, just pass the test again and again. Mad Reader the Xer, nice to have you here from the UK, and early morning in Europe. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Trying to enhance the background a little bit. We'll see what we're going to do. I want to make that even better than what it looks right now. This was very fast makeshift this afternoon. Took me an hour. Okay, good enough for tonight, and we'll see what we can do to make it better. Actually, I have an idea with a rigid screen rather than this screen like that. Anyways, playing around with stuff and seeing what works and what makes the background more appealing for you guys to actually view, so that it looks interesting to look at my live shows. Dutchman 996 ordered a Texan PL 990X, supposed to be here tomorrow. I'm so stoked, can't wait. Feels like Christmas Eve. You're gonna have a lot of fun with that. It's great radio. John Beckham, Meaning Wave Band has been on fire regarding the Xing as of late during the night hours. Yeah, I need to take some more of that that CC radio to E and listen to the bands a little more. Got some voice on 6899 upper sideband. Can't make it out. Anyone know what that is? I believe 6899 isn't that an aeronautical frequency? I think it is. Let's just check it out here. So 6899. Let's check it out there. It could be it could be all sorts of things. 6899. Anything here showing up? Nothing showing up for that frequency. So 6899. It could be some fishermen. There's a lot of those going on in that region also. Fishermen and whatever. There's a lot of communications going on there with different. I often hear Spanish in that region. Yeah, 6900. So you probably have something like that going on. So there's nothing really particular in there that I see here or around the frequency. So probably some fishermen or whatever that are talking there. Francis, nice to have you on board from Pakistan. Cool. Hey, John, nice to have you on board. Yes, I am Victor Echo 2 Zulu Zulu India. Jason Francis from Ottawa, nice to have you here. Mad Max, I wonder if a second camera pointed to the screen of the SDR and put up into the upper right corner would be a better option. The best option, I think, would be for me to be a little more set it up differently, and maybe simply have with OBS Studio a little screen in the corner or something like that. I don't know. We'll see what's going to happen with that. But maybe with like OBS Studio have the screen with the SDR and the reason why for me it's difficult is because most of the streamers, what they do is that their computer runs all together. So they're running the SDR, they're running the stream, they're running. So all of that is, I have separate machines that do a specific job. So I have a machine that is specific for streaming. That is a machine that is my gaming machine for doing this. So they are separate, which I cannot. So I can't easily match the odd all together. I would have to use my gaming laptop to stream and to have the SDR working so that I can have it like with OBS Studio in like a corner or stuff like that. So honestly, I find it more interesting to have it probably like before, and I'll be working with that. But yes, it's okay to have it in a corner but I always found it more appealing and was kind of more interesting to have it like I had it before with the 55-inch screen in my back, which I found was much more. It took like all the screen and you had me in front, and I found that to be much more interesting personally. So I don't know. I'm going to play with that and see what I'm going to do, and look at my options also with all sorts of things. I'm looking at a video processing box that looks interesting. It's a little expensive, but would allow me to do a lot of stuff, and that could be added in video effects of every kind. So it's we're gonna see what we're gonna do with the stream. Michael Langer, Shortwave Listening Festival. Yeah, there's Shortwave Fest coming up on early March, where it's going to be a lot of fun. $10 to join for 2 days of Zoom meetings and all sorts of really, really cool stuff. We're going to talk about this a little bit here because the last on the Saturday, the last presentation is with Sheldon Harvey and me, where we're going to talk about the state of shortwave radio. So that's going to be interesting. And so we're going to talk about that a little more because it's going to be very interesting. And I want to promote it because I want to have the maximum amount of people join in. It was a lot of fun last year to join in the Zoom 2 days for, $10 for 2 days of, hours of Zoom meetings and all of this in a virtual is just great. And last year we had a lot of fun. Sheldon hosts the CIDX kind of welcome lounge, if you want, and where you can just if there's nothing happening, or if whatever presentation is not interesting to you, you can go to the virtual lounge and talk with others, and we welcome everybody. And last year that was a lot of fun. So Sheldon, will often alternate with Mickey Dalmage in Alberta, or sometimes me if Mickey's not available to say hello to all the people there. It's really, really cool. And the $10 is to pay for the Zoom meeting software and stuff that costs money to operate. And it's really, really cool. Fastlow didn't have any money back then, was daydreaming in those Radio Shack stores. That's pretty much me also. I didn't have a lot of money, and I mean that catalog. I was the heckler. I was the guy that was harassing the guy at the Radio Shack store every week. Like, you have the new catalog? You have the new catalog? You have the new catalog? Oh yeah, the new catalog. They would send it to you by mail if you purchased. To give you an idea of how I didn't have any money. Radio Shack, if you guys remember, here in Canada, I remember it was like that. There's a minimum amount of money, because if you all remember, going to Radio Shack, they would ask you for your name and your address and your postal address when you would buy stuff. And there you were in their computer stuff. And if you purchased enough in a year, you had the honor of getting the catalog by mail. It happened only once. It happened the year that I bought the Radio Shack DX 100. But all the other years I had to go and pick it up. I never bought enough to get it in the mail. It only happened once, and I was so happy to have it in the mail. It was like, oh, this is so cool. So, oh man. Imagine if I had the money I have today with the Radio Shack back then. I would have a lot of junk like I do now. It's just that now we buy it online. But, there was something fun about you see the stuff and you could touch the stuff, and then you would come home. I still remember the excitement of you have that box with a radio in it or whatever you purchased. and you're going home with it, and it's like, oh man, this is so cool. I can't wait to try it out. But I bought a lot of stuff at Radio Shack. I bought electronic kits. I bought quite a few. I bought a few radio controlled toys, like cars, and I remembered a tank. It made so much noise. It was like I couldn't just have it inside. When I would have it was a Sherman tank, remote control toy, and I remember that it made so much noise that if I tried to use it inside, my mom would yell at me to stop playing with that thing. And then I had to play with it outdoors. But it was just so funny because one of my friends had a 4x4, but the way it was built, it was built to run on asphalt, or on a very flat surface. And he was always mad because I would always have these courses with grass and all sorts of things. So he would go in the grass and he'd get stuck because the remote control 4x4 he had didn't have enough force to go through the grass. It was clearly meant to be just asphalt. But my tank would go everywhere. It would just go everywhere, and it would I'd make ramps that are really, really very, very high ramps. And you'd just go up the ramp like nothing's there. It's no problem. Works great. Oh man, I remember that thing. But oh man, it was just so noisy. It was just crazy. But oh man, bought walkie-talkies, radios, a few gadgets. Bought a few gadgets over time. Of course, the weather cube. I remember buying that. I bought stuff that I probably don't even remember I purchased. And when online, there's that place, website you can go with the Radio Shack catalogs. I look at the catalogs from like 1982, 83, 84. See all this stuff in it, and it's like, oh man, all the things I would have loved to own and I would love to buy back then. Oh man, I remember going there because that's the only place they had it. I had a Commodore, and there was a magazine, a Commodore magazine called Ahoy, and I still remember Ahoy had a speech synthesizer circuit that used a speech chip, which was the SPO 256. It was a special chip that made phonetics. So with the phonetics, you could have it speak. And I thought it was so cool that I made the circuit. But I remember I went to Radio Shack for the chip because only Radio Shack had that chip. And I still remember it was pretty expensive chip. It was like a $30 chip or something. But it was a kind of a phonetics speech synthesizer. And all the other parts, I went to a store called Addison here for the rest, which they're the audio amplifier on board with a 386, an LM 386, and then all the connectors and the cables. And man, when I built that thing and plugged it in my Commodore, I was like, wow, I'm having my Commodore, speak. The worst part is I made that circuit and it was fun to do, but the Commodore 64's own SID chip, there was a software called SAM that actually made it speak anyways from the chip inside it. So, man, there was, I bought a lot of stuff. Radio Shack, I spent every money, I spend my money in two ways. All the money I had from taking out the dish, like cleaning the dishes, taking out the trash, and Christmas, uncles giving you $20 or stuff. I either spent it on sending out for QSL cards for radio stations I was listening to. That's why I have such a pretty big collection of QSL cards. And if it wasn't that, it was spending it at some kind of Radio Shack gadget or something that I would just buy it. So, oh man. The memories, the memories. I think for all of us, Radio Shack has definitely a very special place in our heart. Oh, JDA Dakota. Even when I was a regular department store like Famous Bar or Dillard's, I would always go through the electronics department. You know, I think another place where here I was drooling over the catalog. The other place was Sears when they had that Christmas catalogs with all the toys. Oh darn, I would drool over that catalog. Pretty crazy. The Sears catalog. Oh man, fast load. Imagine at one point I managed to get hired there, huh? And you know they knew what they were talking. They knew that they were talking about. You know what they were talking about at the time because they had. Um, you would ask for something, they knew the connector. I still remember the lady like, well, I need this adapter for that thing on my TV. And the guy was like, yeah, you need that, the technical talk about it. And she was like, what? And you just take the package and say, this is what you need. Skip, the math is not that hard so long as you practice. If you practice, you can make it. I'm a math dummy, but I aced my AM tests up to through extra. Yeah, it's the thing is the math is there, but it isn't that difficult. You know, you have to. Oh, you still have your name tag? Well, G Dakota, very first shortwave radio I ever worked at a Sears brand on it. Sorry, guys, Sears brand. Yeah, there were some Sears branded radios, TVs. I remember we had a 14-inch color TV in the home, and it was Sears TV. Today's figures, nice to have you here. Mickey Delmage from Sherwood Park, Alberta, Canada. Nice to have you here. Since Pharaohs, I believe fisherman because it was weak and it was Spanish sounding. Yeah, a lot of that going on. A lot of that going on. Sears Silvertone brand radios. I remember we had a Sears i5 with 8-track cassette and 4-track. It had 4-track and 8-track cassette in it. And that was, and a record player. And that was like the thing that I listened to my first records on for years. And it had one thing, funny story. It had one thing that was kind of unique and very bizarre. You could put your headphones in the headphone jack, but it would not put the volume off. You know, a radio, when you put your headphones, it disconnects the speakers. So one night there were 2 little switches that you had to lower to remove the speakers when you put your headphones, or else you'd have the sound in the headphones and in the speakers. So my brother gets home from, I believe it was from school. He went to university. So he was home from university, and he completely forgets. It's around midnight, and he pumps up the volume real high, puts on his favorite record, and he's completely forgot that you got to put the switch off. So when he starts the record, I wake up and I look at him like, are you crazy? And he realizes he forgot to turn off the speakers. And he still remembers that this day. He said, the look you had on your face at midnight with the music like real loud in the house. It was crazy. So Fastlow, what about a setup at Twitch? Put your video in a corner. Yeah, that's one thing that I could do, but I have to I have all in the same computer though. I still vote that I'd rather have like that 55-inch screen in the back with the SDR on it, which is more fun for me. But we'll I don't know. I need to play around with this and make it different for sure. But for now, let's we'll have fun playing around with that. What else do we have? John Beckham. True Tone was a brand from radio from Western Auto and Airline. Oh man. But don't let that math thing prevent you from getting your hand license, Greg. Wolves howling on 5900. The only thing I can find on this frequency is Brother Scare. So 5900 is from it's Brother Stare from I think it's the Bulgaria transmitter site on 5900. Let me check that out here. 5900. Need to put this closer. So Brother Stare from 2000 to 05 from Bulgaria transmitter site. Yep. So you're hearing their moaning sessions. Their Halloween stare. Oh, by the way, I have some interesting. I didn't post a video finally because I uploaded a video and I decided to not post it because of the controversy of it and maybe the controversy of personal comments on it. So I was listening to WWCR on 3215, 3215. There was a preacher there that actually was ranting at the Brother Stare. Actually, you would always say Ralph Stare cult, and how it was horrible, and how it was he's not in heaven for sure with all he did. And it was very interesting because I thought, okay, so you're on WWCR ranting at what is probably one of the biggest WWCR clients, which is Brother Stare. I found it very interesting, and I recorded about 10 minutes of it, and I kept it on the computer. At first, I uploaded, because I also had my comments over what he was saying. I uploaded the video, and I thought, what do I do? Should I post it or not? Because it was a little, for me, it was, okay, it's a little bit of controversy now. It's a sensitive issue with religion. And my first idea was I'm going to post a video, but block the ability to comment on it in the video. And then after, listening to it, I thought, let's not post it. It's too, I don't know. It's too delicate for a subject. Let's just leave it alone. Canadian Radio TV guys, sounds like fishermen on 6900 lower sideband right now. Yeah, most of the fishermen are lower sideband. 90% of the time they are lower sideband. So probably was still hearing it at 6899, but Zen Farrows, my son, video content creator, showed me how to use a capture card to do OBS on one machine and with the other machine working hard. So he says he recommends Elgato, Camlink, or HD60S Plus, which is what I got. Okay, I'll check it out. Because if I'd go that route, I would go with a video capture device to share the video. Because I do not want to do like 8 different things on the same machine. I like having dedicated machines for everything. And I do have enough machines to dedicate every machine for everything. RJDA Dakota remembers Western Auto. Kev Michael, where is this happening? If you're talking about the Shortwave Festival, it's a virtual event which is going to take place via Zoom on March the 4th and the 5th, I believe. Kevin Michael had a beacon from Russia with 10-meter band. That's interesting. It's interesting because 2945 is not a place where you'd hear beacons usually. Tristan, nice to have you here from Newfoundland. John Risson, nice to have you here from the UK to E0JGR. Kevin Michael, I was there too. Used the radios at Radio Shack. Yeah, Battery of the Month Club. I always get that 9-volt battery all the time. Because let's face it, what do you do with 1AA or 1D or 1C? Actually, back then, you would buy C or D batteries. AA's weren't used that much because all the stuff took so much power, and all the stuff was so big anyways that they'd use C batteries or D batteries then. Sears also sold awesome stereo systems from radios, record players, tape cassette players, and big floor speakers. Yep, that's what we had. My dad had purchased a Sears hi-fi stereo system. It actually sounded good. Of course, today compared to what I had afterwards when I purchased my first stereo system, yeah, okay, it was. I noticed that there was much better than that, but it sounded okay. It sounded okay. Chemex Z1976, nice to have you here from West Michigan. Charlie McKee, VE2XCC, nice to have you on board from west of Quebec City. Kev had the Pro 9 multi-band, was my favorite radio on a wish list. It took me a lot of time before I went into scanner radios, but I remembered throughout. So I had the multi-band receiver, which was the Patrolman CB60, and one variation of it also was a Patrolman SW60, which was a multi-band radio. And I had that. My dad had purchased that, I don't know, around 1983-ish. And I was fascinated by a multi-band receiver with VHF, UHF. It was the first time ever I heard the Police. Montreal Police was, and that time they were on 152 megahertz, somewhere around that range. So I remember that was the first time I heard the Montreal Police. First time I heard, not the first time I heard the Airband. I heard the Airband before that with another multi-band radio that I just have no idea what brand it must have been. Actually, I need to check it out. Some guy has consumer distributing catalogs online. And what I thought to do was to go and check out some of those from like 1980, 1981, because I know that the multi-band receiver we had, the first one came from consumer distributing. But the Patrolman CB60 was my scanner radio, if you want. It was not a scanner radio per se because it would not scan. It was it was a multi-band receiver that had CB bands. And I was fascinated with listening to stuff on that. And today I see that compared to today's radios, even the cheap ones, it's very, very insensitive. It's not very good at what it does. But it opened up my eyes to that, VHF, UHF range. And I remember seeing the first scanner radios that came out, the first ones with crystals, then the first ones that were no more crystals. You could just program the frequencies in, and that was kind of a neat thing. But I didn't have a scanner radio before I had my first real full-time job in 1989. And that's when I started with a Pro 30. Was that the Pro 30? It was a small a small handheld scanner that had 10 channels only, programmable channels. And then I moved on to a Pro 2022, which was a blast. That thing was cool. It was really fun. It was, I did the modification for cell band and listened to the cell phones. It was really, really nice. And then got the Pro 2006, which was one of the top-notch scanners of the time. Also made the modification for, listening to the cell bands and stuff like that. And it's still here. It's looking at me right there. And maybe it's a Pro 10. I say a Pro 30. I think it was a Pro 10. Probably that was the thing, Kev Michael, Pro 10. It's funny because I have the chat in two different ways. Here, where I'm actually behind by 20 minutes, and the one there that is live. So that is, I came late into the scanner. I had the scanner craze. I listened to a lot of scanner stuff in the 90s. I really had a lot of fun and probably purchased. The next craze I had probably in the 90s was purchasing. I would buy a few. I had a few shortwave portables, but I had my Kenwood 5000. So I was not as crazy of buying new shortwave radios all the time, but I was crazy as buying new scanner radios all the time. And I moved on from a portable Pro 51, which I loved. It performed well. It was a good scanner radio. To a Pro 90. What was it? The first scanner they came out with that went up to 1.3 gigahertz, which was the crappiest Pro 26, I think. It was the crappiest handheld I'd ever have. It was overloading on everything. It was such a bad performer, and it was expensive. And then I purchased a Pro 43 because I wanted to have the UHF military airband. And I sold the Pro 26 to a guy that wanted it for like $200. And he said, "Why don't you want it?" I said, "Well, I bought a new one and, it costs a lot of money." In reality, it was like, yeah, it's because a piece of junk. And then the last portable scanner I purchased brand new was a Pro 92 from, I think it came from Universal in the US, and it cost me a fortune. I wanted to have a trunk scanner, and the Pro 92 was a trunk scanner. It was the first generation. But man, the souvenirs of stuff to buy. John Beckham, Radio Shack was an Icon Electronics store here in North America and Canada. Yep. Doug Smith, nice to have you here from Virginia Beach, which is the cat's favorite radio. Paul the cat, he'll use any radio as long as he can do it with me at the same time being together. He'll accept any radio. Fast load. My father got me the Audi Quattro remote controlled car. Man, was the fancy one with the proportional digital control. Wow. I had that. I didn't buy a lot of stuff. You know what? I didn't buy a lot of remote control stuff at the Radio Shack. I purchased, I think, two of them. One was the Sherman tank. And the reason for that, my brother had a job in a hobby shop. Actually, it was not a hobby shop. It was a big warehouse that were actually distributing to all the hobby shops in Montreal. So they had tons of stuff in the warehouse. And over there, every Christmas, when at Christmas, at my birthday and at Christmas, man, I got some real big stuff. I remember having a Nico 4x4 that was, I remember when I found it in a catalog one day, it was like a $300 remote control car. It was very expensive for the time. And I had that because he had given me that, I had discounts because it was working there. And he had that as a gift, a Christmas gift for me. So I had some high end remote control stuff because of him working there. Kev Michael had the Pro Shortwave 60. Was a great receiver. Did mods to get it TV and cell phone audio. Took it everywhere. John Beckham Radio Shack stereo lineup, known as the Realistic brand, was rather good. Realistic was a pretty good brand in general for the electronics stuff to at Radio Shack. Fastlow, when I got hired Radio Shack, I bought the point of service server. It was a Tandy 1000 TX 286 machine at 8 megahertz. Oh man, quarter of the original price. Dan, nice to have you here. Salut, VE2XXI. Yeah, it's V2ZZI. Wrong key. Nice to have you here. Dan in Ohio, N8WJZ. Anthony, I had a Commodore 64. I remember getting Run magazine. It had programs in the back of the in a machine language you could type in. Man, I typed so many of those programs. Some of them were neat for type in programs from magazines. Some of them were very surprising. I still remember I actually submitted to Compute Gazette my first ever little game that I had programmed in BASIC on the Commodore VIC 20, and it was a program to have children learn how to do basic math operations. And it had all sorts of, little graphics that would show up. If you did it right, you'd have, a cake with lit candles on it, stuff like that would appear on the screen if you had it right, and all sorts of little things like that. And I remember sending it in with a little on a 4-track cassette where you would record the stuff with the data set. And I still remember being sad because they had sent me a letter just saying, "We're sorry, but we can't take that." I thought, maybe I could make some money making software or something. Oh man. Kevin Michael still has the QSLs from the 70s and 80s. Oh man. What else do we have? Let me just try to find where I was. So, okay. Christian Marcoux drooling over the Sears catalog too. Toys, electronics, and women's bras and panties. I think a lot of guys looked at the Sears catalog for other things than just the electronics. Come on, teenage kids. You would go to that, Oh, look at that. It's the underwears. I think a lot of us did that, if not everybody did that at the time. Discovering the world around us. Let's just call it like that. Anthony bought the first shortwave radio at Radio Shack at DX390. I think a lot of us bought our first shortwave radios at Radio Shack, honestly. Maze Man 01, nice to have you here. Thank you very much. Keegan says first shortwave radio with digital tuning was the Radio Shack DX402. My dad, W9JEF, got for me in early 2000s. Ronald Klontz, nice to have you here from Chicago. Then Pharaoh, speaking of fishermen, have you heard about the Irish fishermen who are going up against the Russian Navy on exercise in Irish waters? No, I haven't seen that. John Ritson, nice to have you here from the UK. Pretty cool to have everybody here. I know he's in upper in upper case, Bobby, but you don't have to blog Francis. I think he's just trying to, share. He's just an upper sideband, an upper case. Too much radio. He's an upper sideband. We're going to say that now. How the guy's riding an upper sideband. Let's try to catch up here a little bit. Rick Fisher, thanks for your streams. They are very informative. Thank you very much. We're here for that. Bobby Burgess, he also questioned a moderator request as well. Okay. Anyways. How much is the MLA30? It's about roughly in the $40 range. Yeah, Rabomba, nice to have you here. Like the J.C. Penney catalog, especially in Christmas, many shortwave radios to choose. So the best indoor antenna, if it's a noisy place where you live, will be an MLA30, honestly. You'll just need to have an adapter to put that antenna on the Ethon Elite 750. John Beckham, Spain on 9690, coming in Northeast Florida. Cool. Yeah, the difference with the U-loop and the MLA30 is that the U-loop is a passive antenna, so not amplified, but has kind of the same properties as a magnetic loop. The MLA30 is an amplified version, if you want. Dutchman 996 from Victoria, British Columbia, like AM station in Everett, about 100 kilometers away. Having a hard time receiving it on the little Panasonic 2400D. Would a better radio help, or is it all about the antenna? I would start with maybe the noise around you. Have you tried to just like go outside with the radio and see if you hear it a lot better? That would answer that the radio might be just fine, and that it's simply the fact that you have too much noise. That is the number one problem for a lot of people. And I think that would be the first thing to look at. Then would a better radio be, internal ferrites from a lot of these radios are pretty much some of the best antennas you can have, and it was from medium wave. They're pretty good. Dimitri, any mysteries on shortwave? Oh, quite a lot of them. There's all sorts of weird signals and all sorts of very bizarre things happening. Right now, the big mystery that everybody's going crazy about is the buzzer on 4625, the Russian buzzer, that has a lot of people jamming it in all ways and doing all sorts of, pictures and sending out troll faces and jamming it in many ways. JD Dakota, almost all of the better small radios took 9-volt rectangular batteries. Yep. David Haburn says first shortwave radio was Radio Shack. Was from Radio Shack. Weird Science. Nice to have you here. Kev Michael, Gemco had Burkhead radios back in the day. I would spend hours in the place. Yeah, I mean. Well, yeah, the best value is definitely the 9-volt battery. Dimitri used to buy two radios from Radio Shack store to Grundig, which Grundig DL350S, and one without the telescopic antenna. Weird Science used to listen to old cordless phones. Yep, 49 megahertz. Hearing my neighbors, and yeah, that was something. My, you know, let's face it. I think everybody will agree that if you listen to cell conversations and to cordless phones, people have extremely boring lives. You listen to it and you're like, God, most boring thing in the world. But from time to time, you get, some interesting stuff. One of them for me was where I lived in part of the 90s. I was living next street to a bar that was known to be a pretty shady bar with a lot of, drug dealers going there. And of course, when you listen to cell phones, you're listening mostly to the towers that are close to you. And of course, if the bar was just next door, that also meant that all the calls over cell phones for drugs and stuff were pretty much on the same tower that I was hearing stuff. And I heard a lot of shady things happening there. I can tell you that. It was like, wow, this is crazy. So that was one thing. My fun was listening mostly on either very late, any day of the week. You listen to like midnight, 1 a.m. All the guys calling the sex lines, and you're like laughing your head off. That was hilarious. These were kind of the things that I was like, yeah, okay, this is fun. So, and if you guys remember back then, and I don't even know if that exists today with all the apps and stuff, but there were like these, these like meetup lines where you would leave a message and then somebody would come back with a message and, hi, I'm Jill, blah, 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 blah. And then you'd have, hi, Jill, I'm Sophia, whatever, it's like, and you would have like messages back and forth all the time, which was kind of funny. Cordless phones for me were interesting for what I wanted to know when I would hear conversations on cordless phones on 49 megahertz. I wanted to know where they were. The conversations were most of the time very boring. My fun was, what neighbor is this? That's what I wanted to know. What neighbor is this? So, I would listen in like, when they would call in for a pizza or something. It's like, oh, look at that. I recognize a voice. Okay, oh, that's the address where they live. And there was all sorts of things like that. But, oh, man. Cordless phones. Last time I heard a cordless phone conversation was, I'd say probably 4 or 5 years ago now. I don't even know if there would still be I guess there must be somebody somewhere still using an old cordless phone that still works. But for the most part, I followed the revolution. So the first cordless phones in the 70s and 80s, early 80s were just above the AM broadcast band and below the 160 meter band, 1.6, 1.7 megahertz. And AM, they were AM phones. That was kind of weird. Those were the ones with a very long telescopic on them. Then we had 49 megahertz, and that was very popular. There was a lot of 49 megahertz. My fun would be to put my scanner radio in my, especially in the wintertime when you have a winter jacket on. You put your scanner radio in your pocket inside. Just, I would have the antenna like stick out like just here next to me. And I would walk around, or a lot of scanners actually had rubber duckies anyways. So you just put it in my pocket. I would walk around and have all the conversations. I would just scan the cordless phones and have all the conversations of the different people all around. Still remember having my scanner radio in the park not far from here. and I saw I saw the lady talking on her cordless phone on the balcony. So of course I got to hear her conversation, but I was holding my scanner radio in my hand. And I still remember she's like talking like to her friend, and she's like, "You know what? There's a guy in the park with a walkie-talkie." I still remember I was sitting down. I was like, "I'm not a walkie-talkie. I'm listening to you." Oh man! And before they had those digital exchange codes that you had to put the handset on the base so that your base and your phone match to prevent any other handset from triggering your phone. I had a Sanyo 49 megahertz cordless phone. When I would actually remove the base from the power, when I would press talk, I'd hear a dial tone. And I learned that the dial tone was from my next door neighbor that had the same phone. And I could, if I wanted, I could have dialed, um, long distance numbers and stuff. And if you and back then in the 80s, long distance, we were getting screwed with very expensive long distance. Souvenirs of the past of radio. There are a lot of bad souvenirs today, eh? Okay, Keegan got a Grundig S450 DLX, RG88 Dakota, or old GE cordless telephones that broadcast on frequency in the 16 megahertz range. What else do we have? Zenfaros has 518 kilohertz, very weak, but while looking at that, I have something pretty odd at 522 USB, not voice. Anybody know what it is? There's a few things that are marine related in that range. I would not be surprised you're hearing something around 522. What else do we have? Dimitri, I got the Grundig 450, but when I turn on, it won't power on at the first time. I have to reset the receiver. I got a 450 here, the Grundig 450. It's the crappiest thing I've ever had. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. John Beckham, remember when he finally got a CB base station and I had a ground plane antenna on the roof consisting of vertical rod and 4 drooping radials. I had SWR problems. Oh, man. What else we have? Shelley, nice to have you here from South Central Pennsylvania. John Foley Jr., nice to have you here from Massachusetts, Central Massachusetts. Kevin Michael, realistic was good for multiband radios. But I have to say that even though it was uneven, there are some in the later years. Radio Shack had more and more of a of junk in the stuff they had. Andrea the Exer says it was fun doing those programs from magazines until you got a syntax error and no clue which line you got wrong. Oh man. And what was, sometimes was straightforward. That line was misspelled in some way, but sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was that, go to and, whatever, and all the interrelations between the lines, it would crash at that line, but it's because it was going at that line, which is a problem. And it's like, okay, what the hell's happening? Kevin Michael, is HCJB still on shortwave? It is in two ways. It is the only frequency left from Quito, Ecuador, is 6050 kilohertz, which I hear almost every night here. And they do have relays in Europe, I think in German, on European shortwave outlets. Charlie McKee says the AR1000 receiver was my scanner trap. Luckily broke the habit and went on to shortwave listening. And finally a license. Yeah. Then says TI5 VMJ1 in Costa Rica. Big signal on 7200 kilohertz, 40 meter band and lower sidebands. VT Radio, nice to have you here. Paul AA1SU checking in from frigid northern Vermont. Make rooming. I have two MLA 30s. I swear by them. Mike Dragger, nice to have you here. What else do we have? Dimitri, here lots of news about Ukraine, Russia tensions. Yep, the big talk. Sounds like, it's funny because it really sounds like the Cold War times. Yeah, 46 megahertz for the phone band. Then I followed them on the 900 megahertz when there was some 900 megahertz phones. Those, a lot of them were still analog on 900. And the last conversation I heard, I think, was on 2.4 gigahertz. I thought every phone on 2.4 was digital until I heard a analog one. One of the things that they did also was the trick was they would say it's a 2.4 gigahertz phone, but in reality, the base was at 2.4 gigahertz, but the handset was at 900. You'd hear one side of the conversation on 900. So, Ralph Cramden, nice to have you here from a cold South Jersey. Yeah, BB monitors. I remember one of the things when I lived at a place where I had all that shady bar, I was next to a McDonald's restaurant. I would hear the car service on the radio, and I still remember a couple of times sitting down, and they always give you at the car service how much it costs, and I would remember like having being there for like listening for an hour and adding up all the money that went into McDonald's in 1 hour at the car service, and I was like amazed at how much money they were racking in every hour, especially on like weekends and oh, man, it was crazy. KMXC76 used to pretend those old telescopic telephones were lightsabers. Canadian Radio TV, I remember being able to hear my mom on her cordless 2.4 gigahertz phone around 1.7 megahertz shortwave on my DX66 radio for some strange reason. It wasn't a 1.7 megahertz phone. You probably had an image, some kind of image from there. It was breaking through the radio. Arbaz. I had a ICOM R7000 totally unblocked, lots of fun. Canadian Radio TV guy. It was always a weaker distorted signal, but I could always definitely tell it was her voice. Yeah, probably some kind of the base station of those cordless phones was pretty strong. So on a radio that had issues with getting images and stuff, it could definitely break through somewhere. Robert Thompson, I'm seriously considering buying the SI4732 radio receiver, all band FM AM with antenna and battery. It's just the cutest radio. Do it just for fun. Yeah, Keegan. I like the song 867-5309. Roger Gibbs, at one time in the UK, we were allowed legally to use 934 megahertz on CB radio. Wow. John Hummel Newell. What was the name of the magazine from the 80s that was all about shortwave? They used to list the pirate station frequencies. Because there was the ones that I am aware of from the 80s is one was popular communications, and one was monitoring times. I think one of the most popular ones of the 80s was popular communications. You can actually, and by the way, guys, I'll share this because it's just too cool. Um, if you want to check out the old popular communications of the time, World Radio History is the place to go. .com and check out what they have there. It is they have all the popular communications and all the monitoring times in PDF. So check this out: World Radio History, and gazillion other electronics and radio magazines from up to like the 40s and the 30s. It's just amazing. Go and check out what they have there. This amazing stuff. Mark Drager, hoarder the PL330 for my best friend and fellow DXer since the 60s. I'm hoping to get him back deeper in the hobby. Best portable for $80. This, the problem with bringing back somebody from a long time ago into the hobby is the shock that person is going to have of you have to already tell that person, look, it's not going to be like in 1980 or 1970. It's different. Avid tea drinker, nice to have you here. Louis Gattos, new to shortwave listening here. I'm curious to know if there are any radio transmissions from Ukraine and or Tonga. I think someone might have already asked this. In terms of shortwave radio, Ukraine stopped, from what I believe, the relays they had on WRMI. And as for Tonga, the best source of what's happening there right now of news is Radio New Zealand. Jeff King, question. Ethon Elite Traveler, is there a 12, 24-hour clock setting, or is it all 24-hour clock? No, I think there's a setting. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there is a setting from 12 to 24. Jim, nice to have you here from Rhode Island. Very nice to have you here. Manry the Xers is talking about Ukraine versus Russia tensions. 4625 buzzer seems to have increased its signal. I can now get in the afternoon where in the past I would have to wait until evening. Yeah, but it could be just that you didn't notice that in the winter time you might be having it in the afternoon also. But who knows? Who knows? RJ Dakota, I've actually heard music on 4625 as well as voice. Should I be worried? Yep, the end of the world's coming you. Michelangelo. Mike, WDX50, nice to have you here from Northwest Arkansas. What else do we have? Yeah, that is the problem of pretty much everybody. Greg, Kev Michael, the Radio Ukraine is not on the shortwave anymore. Not from the Ukraine, and I believe they dropped their relay from WRMI. And now I think it would have been nice to have them back on WRMI, honestly. So, but they are off now. It's funny because we talk about how shortwave radio affects and can change things in the world. In the last the last or the other international report show we did before, they were talking about how Russia is trying to have Radio Free Europe kind of off the air, and they have been tagging the journalists so that they, are always kind of like searched, and it's getting really bad. And it just shows you one thing: when a country takes time to do that, when we talk, and I hear all the time people saying, "Well, shortwave isn't relevant anymore." If it's not relevant anymore, tell me why Russia is trying to get Radio Free Europe off and Radio Liberty. Tell me why China is spending hundreds of millions of dollars jamming so many broadcasts across Asia. And that, simply that, is telling you one thing. If you're spending that amount of money and going into that trouble to silence radio, it's because radio works really well. And shortwave radio works really well in giving out its messages. It is known that Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty is part of the reason why the Cold War ended, why the wall fell. And in 2022, spending that amount of money for jamming still, I tell you, a lot of countries maybe left shortwave a little too soon, because those signals might be very, very helpful. And actually, there was a lot of ranting. One of the things when the volcano exploded and Tonga was devastated, it severed their undersea cable. They had no more internet and phone. And you know what? A lot of people were frustrated at the lack of shortwave. Radio New Zealand took it upon its shoulder to do a really good coverage on what's happening in the events. And the other thing is, a lot of people were frustrated at Radio Australia not being there anymore. And, it's sad because I understand one thing, and I get it. In our countries, what's having a major problem is the fact that we look at shortwave and wonder, why are we broadcasting to other countries or other nations? And it's simple. First of all, because why not have ourselves explain who we are to the world? Radio Canada International was an example of that. The problem is the population doesn't see the importance of why we should broadcast to the world. And Radio Australia is an example of that. Radio Australia was shut down because, we don't need that. Well, first of all, a lot of the communities in Northern Territories of Australia really are frustrated at the fact that they are having a hard time getting a reliable signal of any news and anything. And the other thing is the short-sightedness of, Radio Australia, when it was the real Radio Australia. We're not talking about the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, doing Radio Australia. We're talking about Radio Australia with its own international service. They were the top news of what's happening in the Pacific. And I understand that for Australians, it might sound strange to say, we're helping other people and we're spending money giving news to other people across the Pacific. But we got to stop thinking about our little selves and think that a lot of our services that were on shortwave helped communities around the world. And shortwave broadcasts helps people that are in need. when a country goes bad, what happens? The internet shuts down. The cell phone, your cell phone ain't going to work very well. And a lot of the services that are like, chatting and text messaging, and it suddenly doesn't work anymore. And the only way to be able to give information is shortwave. And shortwave is as important and relevant in 2022 as it was 50 years ago. But governments just see no more use for it until it's too late. And what happens? Well, shortwave would have been useful now, but we destroyed all the transmitter sites, so we just can't get back on without spending 100 million to rebuild everything. So, well, the hell with it. I tell you, a lot of that is sad because you shortwave can save your ass one day. I can tell you that. Okay, what else? Let's go here. So Andy New, nice to have you here. M7C1 from Bristol, UK. Zenfaros 4625 is one of those 4-tone digital things. Possibly 4623 is the frequency of this transmission. JDA Dakota, that's why I like listening to shortwave. You're listening to history being made, just like in the 40s and 50s. Yep. We got those radio broadcasts are going to be the only way to get information out if something bad goes down. Internet will be the first thing to be cut off. JDA Dakota says shortwave radio is still very relevant, or China wouldn't be spending so much on its external services. Kevin Michael, remember Radio Free Europe on longwave and shortwave. Shortwave is still going, doing emergency. Chris66, nice to have you here from Kentucky. Yep, internet's first thing to going to be suspended. RJD Dakota says New Zealand did steal the football from Radio Australia and the South Pacific Radio Theater. Dimitri, I might guess that who is jamming the Cuban signals towards the United States? Yeah, it's the other way around. It's Cuba jamming the U.S. Stations from the U.S. Once again, another example. Why does Cuba take time to block Radio Marti and WRMI and do jamming all over the place? Maybe because radio is a big problem. Maker, you mean, what would it take to get British Terror Cult to stop broadcasting? I wish North America had more variety, at least rebroadcast news or programs from around the world. The problem is money, and that's the thing. And these broadcasters that have stare stuff on are taking that mostly because of the money that it makes for the station. I mean, it's a lot of money. To have that off, there needs to be a replacement of program, something else happening, content from someone that wants to pay for it. That's why when I write to a station that has stopped broadcasting to North America, I will always mention, hey, by the way, WRMI would be a great way to have a relay to North America for, very cheap compared to having your own shortwave transmitters. I'll be fair because I know that there's a lot of DX purists out there that do not like that. I don't know how many times I've got, like rants or bashed at, well, Radio Slovakia and Radio Pride from WRMI ain't interesting. It's not DX. Yeah, I get it that it's not from the country of origin that it's transmitted, but I don't care in a way because you know what? I'd rather have WRMI sending to North America tons of relays of international broadcasts than having no shortwave at all. Think about it, and I want everybody to think about it seriously. Here in North America, if you remove WRMI, I gotta tell you, your shortwave radio is going to be in a closet somewhere. it is important that that is maintained. And it's important to let every station around the world know that for a very low fee today, you can still be out there. You can still do something. I just look at Radio Canada International that has gone silent pretty much. Man, they would have been able to pay. It's so inexpensive. They would have been able to pay for a um for a relay on WRMI easily. Yeah, you don't want to pay $16.5 million a year for maintaining Sackville and programs. Maybe you can pay what it takes, which are thousands of dollars compared to millions, through WRMI, and you'd still be there. I'm sorry, but that's sad. When we gotta keep these things going on, and we gotta be active. We gotta be proactive about it. You gotta write to stations. You gotta tell them what's there. We gotta write WRMI and let them know. You know what? We like the relays of the international stuff that you have. Please try to work to get more of that. Let them know you want more of that. The more relays from international broadcasts, the more money gets into WRMI. The more the schedule is full of those things, the less there's space for the stair stuff. Oh, man. We got those radio is going to be critical comlink and is even now. I'm old enough to remember how things used to be. Yep. Yeah, RG80 Dakota, 9580 kilohertz Radio Australia. Everybody remembers that coming in so well in North America. John Mickham, I used to enjoy listening to Radio Australia back in the day. Jill, indeed, the land down under has Australia has always seemed so far away from Florida. I mean, who in North America has not been amazed when the first time you heard Radio Australia on the bands? I still remember that evening that I got them. I remember I was in the living room. My parents were in bed. I was alone. I had headphones on in the living room, tuning around my DX100. And I still remember in the summer night when I tuned, I heard this English broadcast, and I listened for probably half an hour to 45 minutes at least when I heard this is Radio Australia. And I was jumping up and down in the living room. I was like, I am getting a signal from the other side of the earth on this radio. This is the coolest thing ever. I still remember that night. I have the feel. I even have in my head the image. When we think sometimes it'd be fun to share an image we have in our heads of a moment in time, it'd be fun if I could show you guys that moment in time. Man, that was so cool. Keegan, shameful if they destroyed perfectly good transmitters. Yeah, well, that's pretty much happened. And what happened is they don't destroy the transmitters. What they do is they'll put them on sale as used transmitters. Or they'll be sent abroad to other broadcasters that need transmitters that, are still good. But man, it's pretty crazy. Man. Kevin Michael, Radio New Zealand is great. Radio Australia needs to come back. I grew up with these stations. I miss hearing the Outback and Pacific on that station. We always talk, and I talk often about how we don't know what's happening in our world that much compared to what we used to. Remember when we would know what's happening in a country, that we have no more news now unless some nut killed 40 people. Because that's exactly what's happening now. What's happening in Norway? I have no idea unless somebody kills people. Oh, now it's in the news. And not for long. It's in the news for one day and then we don't hear it again. I am a DXer but I am a program listener, and I miss knowing what was happening in Sweden or Norway or Finland or whatever European country. Because, first of all, we relate. We notice that a lot of similarities between all the countries around the world, but at the same time, knowing about things that are happening in those countries, you know, that we have no idea. What are the big debates? And we don't even have to go far. If I ask you guys in the US, do you know what are some of the big debates in Canada lately? I'm pretty sure a lot of you are going to say, I have no idea what's happening in Canada. There you go. Why? Because Radio Canada International is not there anymore to talk about it. And that's a shame, because we also are losing our knowledge and our views of other country. We are losing our one of the great things about shortwave is how it actually, I think, if you were a serious shortwave listener back for a long time, we had our own take on the Cold War. There was the Cold War as seen from the US point of view. And we wonder, and we had the USSR point of view. And each point of view is very, there was the West and there was the East, the commies, whatever. But a shortwave listener was not, for the most part, either a commie or a totally Western guy. I think a lot of us were more in the middle somewhere, because we had a lot of viewpoints. There's nothing like having another country talk about your country to make you realize sometimes that, oh, look at that. That's how they that's what they think of us. That's how they view us. Is that right? Maybe we should, and I think shortwave was great, because I don't think many people from the West became communists listening to Radio Moscow. And frankly, and I say it often, Radio Moscow was actually a reassuring voice for me, because I don't know, it was the Russian and communist viewpoint, but it was also at the same time listening to people, regular folks like us, talking about their own place and whatever, anywhere from all the stuff they wanted us, to hear, and they wanted us to understand, but also regular stuff that was kind of cool, and writing to Radio Moscow and hearing your letter be read on the air. It's like, wow, there's actually somebody there that's taking the time to read my letter or answer a question. I don't know. For me, Radio Moscow was more reassuring than being than what we had, which was the Western world trying to scare us of the big commies, and at the same time, the commies like being scared of the Western world. There was something that was kind of joining us together in the middle of different ideas, different viewpoints. Some we don't agree. Some were like, yeah, maybe I'm questioning this side of my country today, because I don't think any country is perfect. And radio was great for that. And I miss that. I miss the fact that we don't see nothing. Oh, the internet does that. Really? Have you, did you Google Russia in the last week? I don't think so. We hear what's happening with Ukraine and Russia, but I mean, did you take the time to Google a country, you know? Oh, I want to know what's happening in the news in Finland. No, we don't do that. It is untrue that the internet replaces shortwave. It is untrue that the internet does what shortwave radio was all about. It's a very different thing, and we're in our little world. We're in our Facebook posts and stuff with our little bubble of friends that pretty much doesn't care about what's happening in the world. And that is what makes the internet. Now we have things like this that opens us up to other stuff. But honestly, we're missing out on what's happening in the world without broadcasts that are telling us a little more about it. And in times of crisis like now, we we want to know what's happening. Oh yeah, the stations on in Australia in the 2 megahertz range, which I've never heard here. Mandarin DX, just a thought. If a country has taken down its shortwave transmitters, could it set up an emergency transmitter with about 50 kilowatt? That would be enough to be received in neighboring countries in cases of emergencies. There's always a possibility of that. But you know what's the problem? Is that, like, you're talking a 50 kilowatt transmitter. Just think about it for a second. You have nothing. You're a government and you need a 50 kilowatt transmitter. I don't think you got that in 24 hours. I don't think. You'll have hams with a couple of kilowatts, but you won't have a 50 kilowatt transmitter. You got to think that you got to buy that transmitter from a company that probably doesn't have it in stock. I don't think those big companies that like Continental, I don't think they have their transmitters like in stock. I'm waiting. I've got my, we've got 5,100 kilowatt transmitters just waiting for you to purchase. I think it's more of you want to have a 100 kilowatt transmitter? It'll be ready in 6 months. So you got to order now because you'll have it in 6 months. I don't think it's already pre-made. Not in today's world. Plus, add the bonus fantastic thing of every country is like that, even Canada, how governments have contracts and how complicated things are. What's supposed to be done in 2 weeks is done in 3 months. So, Sanfaros, well, there are some decent programs on, even right now. Radio Romania 5990 is one of their excellent music programs. Yep, Radio Romania is nice. It's nice to have them still on. Audiophile tubes. Good evening. Is there a difference in receiver quality between general coverage ham radio transceivers and shortwave receivers? Well, actually, if you take the same IN radio, so if you talk about a transceiver for a ham that costs a couple of $1,000, and you have a couple of $1,000 receiver, no, not really that much. In general, the quality is the same. It's just that the transceiver has a transmitter part with the receiver part. For the rest, it depends on the radio. Yeah, John Beckham. A lot of them should have gone. There are countries that understood that. Look, Radio Prague, Radio Slovakia is still on in relay. I say it all the time. I remember, I think it was Radio Prague that mentioned this, that when they left shortwave for an online thing, they lost almost everybody because nobody would go on to the internet to listen to their broadcasts. And some broadcasters understood that. Radio Netherlands. Really, if the internet is the future of what's happening in media, why didn't Radio Netherlands keep their services and put them all on streaming on the internet? They did not. And apart from a few, 9 out of 10 shortwave broadcasters that left had absolutely no plan of being a streaming service on the internet. So that tells me one thing: there's no interest in streaming on the internet. It's not something that's nice. So Meta Lunar, having shortwave broadcasts available for everyone with the radio via WRMI is important, so it can be available when nothing else is. It's just not as useful if it is just a hobby for DXers. I mean, the hobby is diverse. There's different, there's DXers that don't care about program listening. I'm kind of a mix of both. I'm a DXer at times. I am a program listener also. I like to listen almost every day. I listen to Radio Prague. Find it interesting. I like to listen to what's happening in their countries. Bonne nuit, TV DXer, SMZ. Fais attention à toi. Yeah, the waltzing Matilda. Oh, man. Audiophile tubes. Never forget my first receiver. A really nice Nordmend Globe Traveler, pulling in every corner of the world. Oh man. Charlie McKee says as a oldie back in the hobby, missing the waltzing Matilda on Radio Australia. Oh man. Yeah, Greg. Well, you gotta have some different antenna and try different things. Even go outside if you have too much noise. RJDA Dakota, my image was when I was starting getting stuff from overseas, like Radio RSA sent me all kinds of stuff in my QSL. Yep. Badass welding videos, lack of info. It's like they want us to be in the dark. Dave Conte, I don't know if anybody else remembers this, but apparently they went off the air because their transmitter broke down. Radio Nigeria Kaduna, which had a very distinctive sign-off jingle. Actually, you know what, Dave? A lot of shortwave broadcasters left shortwave, especially in Africa, and all those tropical band stations for the most part. A lot of them left shortwave when their transmitters just broke. A lot of them didn't have any money to repair, or there were no more spare parts. Think of those stations. A lot of those tropical band stations had transmitters that were like 30 years old, 40 years old. You couldn't even get parts anymore. So they would turn them on until they just didn't work anymore. And a lot of stations, went off. Then Farrell's is hearing Radio Romania better than S9 on his RFB 45. Just a whip. Cool. Kevin McGehee. Nice to have you here from Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, the American Forces Network. I remember when they were playing all of the baseball games on the American Forces Network. Charlie McKee, Great Plains Joe, actually listening to programs from around the world. That is the heart of shortwave listening. Yep. Skip says, we wonder when the Leafs will win a cup. Not in my lifetime, probably. John Beckham, it is easy to become naive of what is really going on in the world without quality shortwave radio broadcasting, indeed. The problem with the broadcasting is on shortwave, we had what we had. We would listen in because it was there. On the internet, unless you go fetch something, it's not coming up to you in your face. And shortwave is that. The best part of shortwave is simply in your face broadcasting. You want to listen to the radio? Well, in your face, you'll have all the stations there, like Brother Stare in your face, which is what we don't want. We want to have something else. But that's what shortwave is in your face. If a station from a country comes back with, relays and in your face. We're going to hear that country. And there's nothing else that's going to do that. On the internet, if you start a stream from, I don't know, let's say that Radio Bulgaria decides that they want to be Radio Bulgaria like the good old days, but streaming, who's going to know? Maybe us geeks, because we share information through the different blogs. But it's not a in your face thing. It's, well, if you want, you can listen to us on that link. Where on Shortwave, if they would come back and broadcast to North America, it's, hey, Radio Bulgaria, in your face. You're going to cross it on a frequency somewhere. You're going to listen to it. You're going to have it there. It's going to be part of something you can listen to. So it's, the internet is, there's just too much content. You're not, we don't check for anything anymore. We don't go and, we're not going to go find out, is there some kind of English language transmission from that country that would be interesting? Like, no, we don't do that, honestly, Audiophile Tube says, worked Australia for the first time in 15-meter CW when I was a ham at H15, old Heathkit HW16 and Attic dipole running 30 watts from New Jersey. Wow. Oh, yeah, there were a lot of interval signals back then, can tell you that. We got those, a broad base of information that is infiltrated through a TV talking head. Keegan, closest I can get to hearing news from Canada is on CBC Radio 1 via CBW in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and CBK in Saskatchewan. Jeff King, listening to BBC, the newscaster got caught in a revolt broadcasting live, play-by-play after an interview. There's a lot of stuff. Exactly, RGD Dakota. Makes you look at yourself from outside, and you know what? I think we need more than ever that there's an outside look at what we are. Because I think too many people don't realize what we look like. And think that, we know what we're doing and that's it. No, maybe you should have somebody else tell you how you're an idiot in many things. I had many occasions through years and the times of the Cold War where I was hearing viewpoints of, say Switzerland or Sweden or, Belgium or, the Netherlands, Radio Netherlands. That would make me reflect upon, okay, well, these European guys, they think that this should be in this way, which is a different approach to what Canada thinks, Canada has its own kind of unique way of thinking, but it's very, very tied in with also the US. And having a viewpoint of some other country of saying, well, maybe you're wrong and what are you thinking? And it's like, okay, that's an interesting viewpoint here on what you just said and how you're, telling me why maybe we're not having the best approach in the world. We need that. I think everybody needs that. At a personal level, somebody telling us, hey, you should not do this, or you're not, I don't know why you're like that, or you should change that habit or whatever. It makes us change over years, That's why we're not the same person at 30 that we are at 20 or at 40, or we change stuff because of outside viewpoints also, or things we hear. It's the same. It's not just a personal thing. I think as a whole country and as a whole nation, we need to have that little brush that sometimes it hurts a little bit to have somebody tell us that we are this, at this point, or we're idiots, or we're seeing this or that for different reasons. but it also makes us reflect on, huh, okay, that's what people think of me. Yeah, absolutely. Skip, Radio Moscow did have a great jazz program. Absolutely. They had some great stuff. I mean, Radio Moscow had some great programmings in all of the stuff that it was bringing us, honestly. Yeah, audiophile tubes. We were traveling the world, literally, literally. Last radio, nice to have you here from Cincinnati. Mike WDX50 says some commie stations were interesting. I remember really liking Radio Tashkent. They send lots of cool info when I wrote for a QSL. Look, I'll be fair. Even Radio Berlin was at some points somewhat interesting in different things that they didn't. You know, I mean, who wasn't happy as a Western guy to get, and I still remember, my Radio Budapest club membership and my diploma because I had sent all those reception reports. I was part of the Radio Budapest Hungary club, and I was a proud Western guy in that club. And I'm pretty sure a lot of guys in the US that got that membership, that diploma, whatever, uh, we were happy. We were happy. I mean, come on. Did we think about the repercussions of I'm getting a diploma from a communist country? I don't think so. It's like, oh, this is so cool. I'm getting a diploma. Did it bring us into communist life? Absolutely not. I think that's a different thing. You know, when the government is like going crazy over, well, you're going to be a commie if you listen to that, which was a lot of the highlight of the 60s, Western world. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay. A commie is a commie because of their way of thinking already is different but no, I don't think that Russia, the USSR, and whatever made commies. I think it's just the commies that in the Western world existed were already kind of minded and being, in a state of mind of that. They were people that needed something, and that was an ideology for them that seemed a good idea. Um, and it's just funny that I'm pretty sure a lot of us that had been around for a long time and getting all of those diplomas and getting all of those things from all of those communist countries probably all had some file somewhere in the government saying, well, that guy's receiving stuff from communist countries, let's keep an eye on him. Kevin Michael, my letter was read on Radio Moscow. I have the QSL also. John Beckham, Radio Canada, BBC World Service, Radio Moscow, Radio Prague, Radio Sweden, Radio Netherlands are all the stations that most of us shortwave listeners really enjoyed. The world shortwave brought us together, closer. Yep, and I'm one of those that think that shortwave, the way it was, helped in ending the Cold War also. Oh, man. Doug Smith says, first memory of Radio Australia, 1986 on my new Patrolman Shortwave 60 at 12 years old. Oh, man. Shortwave was our window to the world. Absolutely. And by the way, we got to remember that, I mean, shortwave is, the internet, is great. Is great. And I mean, it's great because it brings things like this that we didn't have. When I always say that, as in 1982, when I started, I would have loved to have a Canadian guy talk for 3 hours about shortwave stuff. I would have been one of those guys watching him. And so the internet has its powers and its way of doing things. But for, making sure that the information goes through, radio is still king. I mean, no borders, shortwave radio particularly. And like I said, there's a reason why a lot of countries are still jamming shortwave. Yeah, that's radio. Well, it's a lot of people mad at Russia, so there's like Ukrainian and whatever that are jamming the frequency, and the tones have changed, which nobody really knows why, but it's the way it is. RJD Dakota, Radio Romania is actually one of the few shortwave stations found in an internet radio. Radio New Zealand Pacific is another. Madrid DXer says that is true. Maybe at most 5 or 10 kilowatts. Will not be a proper shortwave transmitter, just a temporary setup. Yeah, I think it's much more complicated because of the state of radio and shortwave radio today. I think it's much more complicated today to set up to broadcast. But it is possible, and I think what's more of a thing, Mad Radio DXer, and we see it with those clandestine stations that broadcast to Africa and the Middle East, is well, I want to rant against. For example, if I wanted to rant against, I disagree and want to rant against the Canadian government. What I would do as a group is let's pay for 500 kilowatts on the French Issoudun transmitter site for a transmission every day towards North America. That will be much more what's going to happen, actually. I don't see countries setting up a transmitter, but I do see a country saying, okay, we need to have a voice. Let's pay for airtime over some big gun transmitter site that will accept our money and our broadcasts. And we see it with all of those. There's one which is the Nigerian clandestine. We see it with one which is the what's the name of that station that broadcasts to Cuba with a very good signal. We hear it really well, which is a clandestine station that is anti-communist regime of Cuba. It broadcasts from France. These groups have the money to pay for airtime. So I think what's going to happen, Man Radio DXer, is a group in a country that something bad's happening will find a way to finance what exists on shortwave that they can use, that's powerful, and that will make a transmission heard where they are with programming. And that, I think, is the future of shortwave for any country that would have an issue. So I think that is more. It's actually probably even going to cost less than trying to find a 10 kilowatt transmitter, setting up some antenna somewhere. And if you're within a country and need to do that, and it's because you want to talk about an issue, maybe somebody's going to find a transmitter and shut it down for some while. Now, if you're in some other country that is neutral and has nothing to do with what you have to say, well, you talk about what you want. So there's those Kurdistan stations that broadcast for Afghanistan and all of that. That's the way to go today. You just rent airtime over a big gun transmitter site and broadcast your message towards that target area you want to send it to. Yeah, Canadian Radio TV guy, Radio Canada International is almost impossible to find now because the CBC is jamming it down in a part of the CBC website that is impossible to find. But just an idea of you asking, I think RCI is still on the internet, tells you of how we just don't know. And it could be gone and we don't even know. We would know because there would be some enthusiasts saying, okay, well, RCI is dead. Which it is anyways, the way that the CBC is working right now. Dimitri, I used to listen to Radio Free Europe, Voice of America, with a lot of noise with it. But some people who understand the English language, they can hear it without interruption. JD Dakota, the voice of Vietnam. I have heard not a long time ago on an American relay station. Forgot which one. Yeah, that was WHRI. Unfortunately, the voice of Vietnam maybe would still be here if it's not the fact that WBCQ tried to buy WHRI and the deal didn't go through, and now WHRI is pretty much silent, and Voice of Vietnam had no voice anymore. So why didn't it switch to WRMI or something? I don't know. Maybe they just didn't know. But I am sad that really is gone. Honestly, that was a station I was listening to. Eric Cottrell, nice to have you on board from Boston. 17 Fahrenheit. Here we're at minus 20 degrees Celsius. So we're like minus, what do I have? Microsoft Teams here. We're at like minus 6 degrees Celsius. Chance Tank, hello, children, radio friends. I'm here for a moment, still repairing the damage from raccoons in the attic. So hope that goes well. Dmitry, because the Russian government was jamming the signals of those stations transmitted towards the Soviet Union in 1980. Yep. The medium wave 2 informer was minus 18 here in Janesville this morning. Dwayne, good night. Take care. 73. See you Saturday. What else do we have? John McClure made it. What else do we have? Got Michael, Radio Peking. Which then was Radio Beijing. Oh, man. Mickey Dalmage, listening on shortwave, you're incognito. Streaming a foreign station, and they're watching. I cannot imagine what it was like to listen behind the Iron Curtain to foreign shortwave transmissions. It probably looked like one of the things we've seen. One of the things we've seen right now is in North Korea, how if someone is known to listen to shortwave broadcasts from other stations, not only you get punished, but the whole family gets punished for what you did. And neighbors and even family members are turning in the people they know that might be listening to those subversive broadcasts. Indeed, shortwave is that other thing, as you say, Mickey. It is incognito. You don't know who's listening. When I made that video a couple of years, was that last summer, the year before, I was at the park with a little portable. And while I was decoding that Russian number station, the idea was, look at what I'm doing here in the middle of a park, nowhere, with a little portable. Nobody knows who I am and what I'm doing. And I'm getting a number station, a spy number station. Look at why this is exactly the reason it's happening. Is that, why don't they do that on the internet? Why? Because, you can be tracked. Even the best trackers, even the people that are, using VPNs of all sorts and whatever, the dark web. There's ways when the authorities and law enforcement decide they want to track you, they're going to track you, whatever you're doing. And that was a great example that I wanted to put forward, saying, look at how anonymous this is. No one knows who I am. No one knows I'm here. And whatever I'm doing with that little radio, nobody cares. And of course, you could do it even more privately by going to a place where there's just no one around. And listening to shortwave, especially if you're stuck in a country that things are not going well and that they're starting to censor whatever content, you are an anonymous listener. Nobody knows what you're doing. You're doing that in your home, in a little room where nobody's seeing what you're doing. You know what? You're getting news from all over the world, and I can imagine the Cold War. People in those Eastern Bloc countries and in Russia tuning in to whatever foreign broadcast they could get. Um, when there's that coup in Moscow, and there was, oh man, I don't remember his name. And there was Perestroika. What's the name of the leader was there? Um, oh man, I have a blank. Russian leader. Let me just check it out here. Perestroika. Troika. Russia. How can I forget his name? Somebody. No. So, Mikhail Gorbachev. Thank you very much. Gorbachev. No, it was before Yeltsin, because Yeltsin made a coup against Gorbachev back then. But Gorbachev was the one with perestroika, the kind of the freedom of speech, and actually Russians were so surprised that they could actually freely, pretty much, say what they think. When the coup arrived with Boris Yeltsin, and Gorbachev was kind of in home detention, if you say, he was listening to the events to know what's happening exactly in Russia on the BBC World Service on his shortwave radio. So as he was in home detention, he was the only way he could see and know what was happening was with the BBC on his shortwave radio. It gives you an idea. Even a world leader at the time used shortwave to know what was happening, because that's the only way he could get it. Imagine the same thing today. You would not have access to the internet to know what's happening. They would have blocked that. They would have stopped that. So that's a powerful image when you think about it. Dimitri, the people in these days believe all kind of stuff on the news. It is hard to check facts. Is that news is relevant? But it's the same for the past. I mean, in the past we had shortwave. We had news which was kind of fake news. Honestly, it was fake news. A lot of it was fake news. Even the Western countries were sending out fake news sometimes. We had to just try to make of what we think is correct and which is false. So it's not different today. It's just because now we're having an interface on Facebook with people and people that we know that share all sorts of fake stuff. But there's no difference. Shortwave back then was part fake news, part half truth. And I mean, there was every country. Some things that the Voice of America were saying, or Radio Canada International might be saying in the 70s, was a half truth. We weren't 100%, always 100% honest in everything. It's kind of a game between countries and between what's happening in the world, honestly. And but it's no different. There is some fake news back then, and the thing is, you'd listen to multiple sources of the same news, which were kind of different here and there. And with that difference everywhere, You can make your own mind of what probably is the truth. And, the way that we will talk about something and somebody else will talk about the same event will differ. It's by listening to as many different views that you kind of make yourself an idea of, well, it must have happened like this. And it's the same thing today. I mean, the problem today is that people tend to, this is the thing. Well, no, make your own viewpoint. Look at what everybody has to say. Don't stick with just one news source. And particularly, don't stick with just one network. That's the worst thing you can do. Because if a network is misleading in news facts and you only focus on that network, then you are getting that fake news all the time that you think is true. Take what you have, and I think the best that somebody can do is you listen to that network that talks about this event, go to the other network and listen to how they talk about it, and try to find as many sources that all talk about it. Then make your own mind. And I think if you listen to more than one source all the time, you are closer to the truth than if you are listening to only one network. Kisamaku, thanks, Jill. Here, I thought the big cats in Africa would chew on the cables, hide, and wait for the service guy to come around and have its next meal. My jam. Anybody ever connect along with to a metal roof? Yes, some people like the metal gutters and stuff like that. The MW2 Informer. Well, you don't listen enough because there's a lot of e-skip. A lot of e-skip. Yep, would be World War III, and we would have no shortwave, and we would have that great news about on the internet where a lot of censoring can happen. Kev Michael got QSLs from Radio Moscow, Swiss Radio, Radio Peking. Yeah, Swiss Radio International is one I missed too. Yeah, RJ Dakota. That was another thing. We would travel around the world hearing stuff. I remember finding that HCJB's music, the Ecuador in music, was sounded so exotic. I remember I got a QSL card from HCJB here with a beach and coconut trees, and I'm maybe 15 years old and thinking, wow, I'd love to be there and see that, you know? Yep. The shortwave merry-go-round from Swiss Radio International. That was good. Pretty crazy. RJD Dakota, internet is always awesome, but I know how fragile it really is. Shortwave radio can power through borders. And that's the big difference between the internet and shortwave radio. Shortwave radio, if your neighbor talks bad about you, you hear the neighbor talking bad about you. On the internet, if the neighbor talks bad about you, you can just, switch the neighbor off. Yeah, Sweden calling the Xer Cyberflyer one. Absolutely. Oh, man. Grateful Dev. What about North Korea? Were they not jamming shortwave back then? Absolutely. They are today also. North Korea has jammers like China Radio. Like China, I mean. The two bombs, Swiss Radio, yep. Avid tea drinker. Does anyone know if East Germany had any shortwave broadcasts before the wall fell in '99? Yeah, Radio Berlin International. Radio Berlin International. So when the Cold War happened, and Germany was split in two. There were two main stations in Germany. There was the Deutsche Welle, that was in Cologne, West Germany, and the German Democratic Republic, which was East Germany, had Radio Berlin, which was their voice of what's happening. So I think, you know what could be fun. How about we end this show? I'm just gonna try to catch up here the chat room a little bit, but how about we do a little bit of going back in time, and I put a few broadcasts from the good old days on shortwave, so we can all listen in. I think it's gonna be fun. Yeah, Jim Beckham. Actually, I heard the Yankee Doodle. I heard the Yankee Doodle not long ago, a few weeks ago, while listening to one of the French transmissions. Nope, you cannot bring your radio to North Korea. I wish I would have a. I wish I would have a a link to that show. There's a National Geographic's episode where they follow smugglers that go from China to North Korea through the river. In their backpacks, they have shortwave radios for the population. And actually, the whole show, you have a video of how life is in North Korea that, of course, is filmed in secret. And it's very interesting because they talk about how these guys smuggle shortwave receivers in North Korea so that they can listen in on the outside world. Cyber Flyer 1, Radio Budapest. Yep. I am Victor Echo 1214 / Romeo Bravo. Is my call sign of the Radio Budapest Shortwave Club. I still have that diploma somewhere here. Still remember how happy I was when I got it. Dimitri says, I remember one movie about one shot shortwave listeners who was found on the radio man from country Chile asked to help and was in the world. Man Radio DX are listening to external broadcasts in North Korea means you will be thrown into a concentration camp. And not just you, the family, your whole family is going away. It's crazy. It's crazy like that. Nitro Racer, nice to have you on board. I'm going to ask you something. Do you think that this C19 is there's something wrong with this whole thing? It's been almost 2 years and it's not going away. Let's just say that I think it's not necessarily the best idea in the world, and I think people are too focused on very specific aspects. Comanche 76. I always thought Gorbachev's bird mug on his face looks like the state of Alaska. Got it tattooed from there. Does he still have it today? Was it fake at the time? I don't remember seeing him lately with that. John Beckham was really amazing, as you have North Korea being communist, and then you have the quality auto technology in South Korea, engineering, Hyundais and Kias. Yep, the auto technology, yep. Give Michael, Radio North Korea is preset to 5 channels. Oh, absolutely. The ones they have in North Korea are officially given by the government is, Interlunar, remember learning in school about how you relied on shortwave to find out what was going on. Yeah, it was his only way of knowing what was happening in Russia. It's crazy. Yeah, that's definitely RJD Dakota. That's why you need multiple sources of information. Because let's face it, there are sources that are very biased. There are sources that are much cleaner. And you got to hear all of it before you make yourself an idea. Still alive, Gorbachev, 90-year-old. Wow. Yeah, John Beckham, absolutely. Shortwave radio needs to help save and make the world a better place. I think that's what's missing a lot today. The fact that nobody talks to each other anymore. Okay, Michael Gerby was a man who wanted to change his country. Radio Moscow sent me his book, Perestroika. Yep. I remember it was so striking. I remember one video of him in the streets in Moscow. People are actually asking the real questions and are mad. And he is telling them that it's all right to express what they think and that they have an opinion of why things are happening. And it's interesting if you look at, if you guys want to see a great series, it's a pretty long series. It's available for free on YouTube. Cold War. Check that out. Great series from how everything started with World War II to slowly every little detail of what's happening and why all the things happened, and the different revolutions that happened, like the Czech Revolution, where in Czechoslovakia they tried to overthrow the communist government and they just got crushed. All sorts of things like that. The building of the Berlin Wall, up to the end where Gorbachev actually is in Germany. And pretty much every Eastern Bloc country has, um, became overnight, they became democratic. They became free countries deciding their own future. And Gorbachev meets with the leader of East Germany, the German Democratic Republic, that just doesn't want to leave the power. And he's kind of telling him, you got to understand that people want their freedom, and you got to let go. If people want their freedom, the guy, you see that the guy is the president is obviously, or the ones at the top of the country is obviously a power guy. He wants to keep power and keep the country as it is and have full power. But Gorbachev is telling him, look, we can't continue like that. The people want their freedom now. They want to really, live their lives, and you've got to decide and take action on what's going to happen. And it's so funny because they show how at Checkpoint Charlie, where people are mad. Like, there are thousands and thousands of East Germans that are there, and they're asking the guards, open the border, we want to cross. And it's getting so intense that the military in place, they just know what to do anymore. And they're calling their chiefs and nobody's answering on the other side. And then at one point, one guard says, look, let's just open the border and let's have the people go through. And you see all these people flooding the western Berlin. And it's crazy, but you see that, it's like, and it all comes from the fact that, everybody's learning that every other communist country, every country are starting to kind of get freedom, and nobody's doing anything. Nobody's doing anything. If you guys want to see a great series, look at the Cold War series. But I would actually tell the younger generation, the ones that are born and that have no idea what the Cold War is, because unfortunately, the millennials, have no idea what Cold War is. No idea what we lived through. No idea how intense it was. And I lived through the last part of it. And the 80s Cold War was as intense as some of the worst moments throughout all of the Cold War. When Ronald Reagan came to power and all of that, it was like, oh man, things were intense, really intense with USSR. Um, but if you are a millennial, if you are someone that is not that doesn't know that much about what happened, do watch it. Learn that history of our world, and it's going to kind of show you and explain a little more. Also, is why we are the way we are today, because part of all of that legacy of the Cold War kind of made the world of today being today. Oh, gee, Dakota, Chernobyl disaster. Yep. So what else do we have? Cyber Fire One says Mike, YouTube has some great shortwave videos from the past. John Beckham, shortwave nostalgia, perfect anecdote indeed. Hey, Dr. Sisop, nice to have you here. Yep, North Korea, China, with fire drakes and CNR1 jammers and stuff. Bart Nave, I like the world map behind you. All my shacks include a big world map, and I placed tags on each country. I DX, pretty cool. And it is a great hobby to travel the world for sure. Mark Trager, my high school teachers were surprised by the news items I learned on shortwave, especially Radio Moscow, Radio Berlin, and Cuba. Some didn't believe me. A lot of people didn't believe us. Some people are not didn't believe that we could, you know, communicate with Radio Moscow. I remember when I did my essay on shortwave in a French class, and I had Radio Moscow letters and QSL cards. Can you imagine in that day? Um, it just is unimaginable. You don't think that, when I wrote to Radio Moscow the first time, I never thought my letter would go through. I never even thought I would have an answer. You know? David KJ4CMY was at Checkpoint Charlie 3 days before it was dismantled and given to the Checkpoint Charlie Museum. Yeah, two tribes. That video was banned everywhere. I remember seeing it on a local I think it was on Much Music in Canada. They had played it, but that video was banned. True Tribes, which has what is it? Chernyenko and Ronald Reagan battling out in a ring with the song. Oh man, that was not acceptable on TV. No politics, Sebastien Lecare, at all. We're talking about stuff we do not want to have any politics of any kind. I don't care what you think of whatever, political party in Canada, US, or whatever. No politics. Yep. Cuban Missile Crisis. Yep. Minta Lunar, did you ever play around with old vintage shortwave radios? Yeah, of course. Of course. Play with some old tube radios with shortwave and stuff. Brian Powell, VK2XBP. Nice to have you here from Sydney, Australia. Says he's from a 1980 vintage, so just old enough to remember the end of the Cold War. I remember clearly the Chernobyl accident, the collapse of governments in Western Europe, the exodus of all those refugees from Albania. Yep. Okay, Michael, me too. My letter from Radio Moscow was a surprise. I think a lot of us never thought that if we'd write to USSR like Radio Moscow, we would get something back. JD Dakota, one of my science teachers recommended me a shortwave radio as a hobby because of my interest in medium wave DX. That was kind of cool. Eastern Europe. Yep, Eastern Europe. I said Western Europe too. I just read it through real fast, but it was Eastern Europe. Oh man, that's crazy. And there was a lot of change in the way that we thought of the world when that movie, The Day After, came out. It created a that also was banned in many places. Nobody wanted to play that movie, The Day After. I still remember, and I think that also was a big. Things were getting very unique at that time period in the 80s because not only was the USSR kind of running out of money and having a hard time keeping up with all of what was happening, and all those nuclear weapons being built cost billions. So you had that it was training Russia, and it was training the US also, and all the billions of dollars of military buildup. And you had to deal with the fact that you had movies like The Day After that came out, and that was not only the Eastern Bloc countries were getting slowly drained, and it was getting clear that at some point something must happen. The viewpoints of the West, the regular folks in the US and Canada and in the Western countries, with a movie like The Day After, were starting to think, this is completely crazy what's happening. This is completely nuts. And you know what? If a nuclear war happens, we're all dead. There is no, oh, yeah, I'm going to survive a nuclear. No. If the US and the USSR would have let all of that go, there wouldn't be life on Earth anymore. There would be nobody around. The idea that you could survive became less and less of a notion for most people. In 1980, with a movie like The Day After, people weren't like in 1950 with, oh, well, you can survive with, duck and cover. Just, throw yourself next to the sidewalk and hold your neck, and you're going to survive a nuclear blast. Come on. In 1980, that didn't go anymore. That was no, come on. Okay. There's no way we're going to survive if these guys go at it. So there was a big change, even on the Western side. It wasn't just a big change in the Eastern Bloc countries. Also, it was crazy. Ryan Powell was a regular correspondent with Radio Tehran at age 11. Spatrick, 1964, Radio Moscow would spend 10 minutes just going down all the frequencies they were at one time. Yeah, that was crazy. It's like, okay, they're broadcasting on 34 frequencies right now. Mad Radio DX, I saw The Day After as a kid, and the bombing scene scared the heck out of me. And I think it changed a lot of the public opinion on nuclear weapons suddenly. Suddenly we knew that, you know what, we're done. If these guys go at it, we're done. Spatrick says, yeah, in 89's Radio Moscow was mostly stuff like cooking shows, learn Russian, and stuff, no live news. Mark Drager, Radio Moscow sent me a record containing their interval signal, but my package was opened by officials and removed. I'm sure I was on some list, probably, though there was a coded spy message. A lot of my letters that came from these countries were always open. That always intrigued me. When the envelope's open, that's weird. John Beckham. When I was younger, I would get QSL cards and info from countries like Russia and China in the family's mailbox, and I can remember my mother's concern about the type of mail I was receiving. Spatrick, Radio Berlin, they would have good stuff for alternative news. And what else do we have? Blue Storm. Threads is another great nuclear movie. Hey, it's fun to listen to the leader, and knowing that the leader is actually so great from North Korea as Patrick. Mike WX50 on the Beach is another nuclear movie I remember. Kim XD76, mutually assured destruction is no lie. Nope. Nope. That's crazy. Yeah, Radio Netherlands. They even had Radio Netherlands. Radio Netherlands even had the. You could actually ask for booklets for reviews of shortwave radios. So, hey, let's play a little bit of old time shortwave stuff if you guys feel like it. Let's go nostalgic a little bit since now I've reached the end of the chat. Brian Powell's Tirana story. I would receive regular correspondence, badges, New Year's postcards, and then when the communists were removed, the money ran out and the letters stopped. Yep, a lot of those places, that's pretty much what happened. It was they weren't as generous anymore in what they were sending out. RGDA Dakota, mail from Peking was always open. My stuff from Moscow was pretty much left alone in later years. Yeah, Radio Baghdad. Man Max, you know that the ESP32 that's in the ATS-25 are far more capable than what it's being used for. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities. Yeah, it's an Arduino in there. That's all in there. So it's a small computer. Whatever you decide to put in firmware, and you can start all sorts of stuff. John Beckham, Radio Netherlands. So let's. I'm just gonna do a little something here. So I'm gonna do a little change here. So I'm hearing this is. I've got the two CNGs here. I've got a. Let me just push this here. Push this here. I'm gonna take this in my hand. So I'm gonna put this here actually, and this is gonna be this. And this is gonna be like this. So this is okay. And let's. I need my earphones here. Take the headphones. Let's see if I can bring the headphones here in some way. If I can, at least a little bit. So they're kind of stuck. And we're gonna try a few things here. Let me just get this here. This is really stuck. What the hell's happening with this? It's stuck there. As long as I can hear it just a little bit, we're gonna check it out. Okay. So let's go here and let's check out something here. Radio Netherlands. So here we are, Radio Netherlands, shortwave. So let's see one with shortwave identifications and jingles from the 70s. Radio Netherlands. So here's the Radio Netherlands interval signal for those that want to hear that one. I'm just going to do this here and click on that. So do we hear something or not? We're not hearing anything here because sound is not coming out of the good stuff. Let's check it out here. Output from, yeah, it is the speakers. I don't get it. It's not working. This should be okay. This is okay here. But, okay, this is good. This is good. This should work, actually. If it doesn't, well, we got a problem. So let me just try it again. See if it does work. It doesn't work. Why is that? Let me just switch between this TV. Okay. Oh, well, I guess we won't be able to do it. I had a big error message earlier when I started the stream just 5 minutes before. I'm wondering if something's wrong with the connections, because I had so this is an insider machine, and I had a crash just before I started. The computer restarted, and it coincided with me plugging in the USB console. So unfortunately, I think we won't be able to do anything about this. I'm so sorry, guys. We'll try to fix that for the next one, but we'll do a show where we'll have some good old stuff again. I'm sorry. Things happen. So anyways, yeah, technical difficulties. It does happen, and this is live, so it's the perfect time for it to happen too, of course, because it's live. Because the output's okay. The speaker output goes to the console, and the console, nothing is heard on the console. So I guess something's wrong. So anyways, hey guys, we're gonna call it quits for tonight. We're almost at 3 hours. Hope you enjoyed the show today. It was a lot of fun, by the way. Hope you enjoyed, and it's always cool to be here. Hope you enjoyed the show tonight. We're gonna be back Saturday and Sunday. Remember, so Saturday is the Shortwave show here, 20 hours UTC. Sunday is the first monthly live amateur radio show on the VHF UHF channel at 20 hours UTC. So hope that you guys can join in one or maybe both of the shows. And it's always fun to be here. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Love you all. And see you Saturday. Bye-bye.